Hello and welcome to TelecomTV. I'm Martin Warwick and I'm talking with Sharon Barkai, who is the founder of ConteXtream. Let's start with SDN. SDN seemed to appear almost from nowhere about October the year before last. And it sprang upon the world as something new, but it wasn't that new, was it? There'd been work going on in the background, in that context previously. Tell us about that.
And that's absolutely correct, Martin. The work that some of us have been doing on SDN dates back 6 or 7 years already. And then the forces behind it is how to make network much more programmable, how to digest the lessons we have learned from 10 years of Google, for example, on how you can really build distributed systems and put that knowledge into the network. So it's kind of a feedback back into the network of principles that were being baked in over-the-top applications. And that is how you can dynamically be able to allocate resources, map identities, and not be stuck with subnet networking or static configuration, which just get more and more complicated.
We're moving now into the real world, beyond the hype, beyond the theory, and away from that into practical application and deployment of SDN. How are you involved in that?
So we're actually one of the leading companies that are in massive production deployments. We are able, using a technology that has been baked for so many years, to map billions of subscriber flows to network functions based on conditions. And we're doing it right now for 50 million subscribers, 22 cities, multiple carriers in the US, fixed, mobile, and in Europe, and also in Asia. So that has been very successful for us. It's part of the reality coming into play after the market has digested the basic message over the last 2 years.
Right, so you're doing this to what purpose? What do your customers, the service providers, get from this?
So SDN is programmability, but what is the reason why? And for us, the cause for that was this idea that you can map subscriber flows to functions based on conditions. So for example, what we know is the smartphone phenomena. It imposes a lot of new requirements of networking, which weren't there. And how can you inject this functionality, the optimization, the filtering, security, analytics quickly into the network? So I would say we've been using the SDN programmability principles in order to connect network functions, subscriber functions, applications, and using an architecture that can scale to large carriers.
Where does NFV sit as far as you're concerned?
NFV is about taking the function out of the network junction, so we can have them as elastic and Googleized as other applications, so innovation can be fast. That's a different distinction. And the network virtualization, the cloud network virtualization overlays, they're about separating identities from location. They're about this ability of billions of identities to be moving around the network and still being connected. So these three principles are combined together into leveraging each other in order to virtualize the entire infrastructure.
Would you say a revolution or an evolution in virtualization? One or the other, which is it?
So we're currently at the hype of revolution because we are as drastic as IP was, okay? So we have built IP networking to be able to extend. Now, we use this basic IP networking in order to build other structures, other distributed structures on it, in order to have the flexibility and programmability. So it is a revolution. There is a lot of disruption, and as we discussed, it's based on years of underlying work, and it's going to be followed by imitation and mainstream, and the hype will die down, but the networks will never be the same again.
Sharon, we've heard a great deal about the openness of the transition. How open is open?
So that's a great point. So standards are really important because they clarify the language. They clarify the interfaces. They keep, for us as a company, they keep everything honest, both externally and internally. We can be sure that we follow our own example and that we can interconnect and interoperate with others. These are really important. That said, developers and technologies in general, they have a sixth sense to sense bogus standards which have been put together on like an architecture versus something that comes out of actual coding, deployment, and insight experience, and the abstractions that were set forth reflect that insight. And the market will sense the real standards from the not so real standards quickly, and I think the IETF has the right methodology of emerging the right distinctions there.
Well, we've talked about what your customers, the service providers, can get out of this in terms of the technology. What about in terms of the the nitty-gritty? You can only reduce CapEx by so many times. After that, you've got to look elsewhere for your savings. You can never run a business purely by saving money. You have to make profit. What's the return on investment? How long and how much is it?
So because we are after productions, large-scale productions, we can point to what we think the process that will repeat itself. You have to come in with an application. Are you going to virtualize something very specific? And there has to be a very good business case immediately. And many times it is optimization. It is about saving money. Not always are you cutting the cost of the function that you're putting in place, but maybe you're enabling a new function that then makes your wireless plant 39% better. So that is an immediate ROI, and decision makers look for that. But if that comes out to be okay or just break even, that's okay also, because then you begin to see the improvement in experience, time to market, as we roll out new features constantly.
We were talking off camera before we started the interview, Sharon, and you were saying, I was asking you about what ConteXtream is doing here at ONS 2014, and you said, well, we have a demo which messes with your streams. It sounds very dubious. What does it mean?
It means you'll come to our booth, we'll give you an iPad and an iPhone, and then we'll say, hey, you're now in a busy cell, and you're watching video, and you suddenly see the video, maybe the quality will not be HD anymore, but you will see the movie, and we'll show you we just saved 97% of the data. So unlike existing conditions, which is all or nothing, and when you get into congestion, not only it's all or nothing, it's just undetermined. You just don't know. You're doing something, then you're trying to send an urgent email, and it just doesn't go out. We have that control, and we have that immediate control. We'll also tell you, okay, now you're a teen. And even though you try to go to CNN, your parents say you can't. So your CNN click will end up in Disney. So that's the kind of things we'll show you, and we'll show you how we can account for every one of the tens of billions of flows running through our customers' network every day using our reporting tools.
What about your focus for next year, from ONS 2014 to ONS 2015? Where are you going to be looking? What's your focus?
As far as architecture and technology, I really like the fusion of SDN separation, NVO distribution, NFV as a bar and a purpose. So we're beyond that. I think the components are in place. We look for market growth. So we started out with GI function, which is facilitating smartphones better. That's going to extend to the mobility itself, which is a function in the network that lets you move around even though the internet thinks you don't. So that's going to be virtualized next. And that's going to go further deep into the RAN itself. So we see that roadmap. In fixed, we have started our deployments with IP multimedia. We are enabling our customers to load balance resources across time zones and busy hours and defragment their resources. We're going to see that more in session border controllers and other multimedia operating systems like the Comcast operating system for TV and so on. I think these are the two main focuses for us towards next year. Just use these beachheads and just penetrate further and bring more value.
Sharon Bakai, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you, Martin.